Hello and welcome to the Metal Pack Pod, the industry's leading podcast for the global metal packaging market. The Metal Pack Pod is brought to you by the Metal Packager, the number one digital resource for the global metal packaging market. With over 7,000 monthly users in over 150 countries globally, be sure to check us out on metalpackager.com. I'm your host Alex Fordham, and in today's episode we welcome Dr Polina Ware, Global R&D Director at PPG. Polina is on a mission to protect and beautify the world through innovating to engineer out legacy toxic chemicals in metal packaging and develop environmentally friendly chemistries that support circular economy and sustainability. During this episode, we discuss the increasing importance of AI in business and how this is set to shape the packaging coating sector in the years to come. And of course, as much valued podcast sponsors, we're really grateful to PPG in supporting the Metal Pack Pod. Their range of innovative solutions help protect and beautify the world. Now on to today's show. Polina, thanks very much for joining me. I'm looking forward to an interesting discussion about the ways of PPG, the AI industry, and also how PPG are looking to protect and beautify the world. So looking forward to an interesting conversation. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
So Polina, before the call, I just had a brief look at your LinkedIn, as you do these days with regards to your work history, and I know you're fairly new to the PPG packaging coatings team, but it seems like you've got a varied history and lots of experience within the overall sector. So yeah, if you could just give me a brief introduction about yourself, that'd be great.
Absolutely. And first, Alex, it is really nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me to talk about PPG packaging and also how we innovate with our coatings. About me, I've been in specialty chemical industry and case market coatings, adhesives, sealants, and elastomers for majority of my career over the last 10 years. And I started my career with a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, with my first job being a coatings engineer, where I worked for a semiconductor company. And I was developing coatings for what is called is a photolithography process, which is a process that prints the design of the microchip onto the wafer. And that experience really inspired me to go back to graduate school, get a PhD in polymer science and engineering, and really learn about how do you architecture and put the molecules together to really get the desired properties and performance of material that you want. And since my PhD, I've really tried to focus as much as possible on developing more sustainable technologies for the world, for the market. I have a number of patents to that extent. And now here at PPG, I am on the mission to protect and beautify the world through engineering out legacy toxic chemicals in metal packaging, and ultimately continuing to support the metal packaging industry because aluminum is infinitely recyclable, and that in itself supports circular economy. And I believe AI, artificial intelligence, can accelerate all of that, not just for PPG, but for all of us.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a really varied and interesting career that no doubt is going to enhance PPG packaging coatings team. I know it's early days for you, but what are your overarching views of the packaging coating sector so far from an outsider looking in, so to speak? I mean, I've worked in the metal packaging sector for a number of years, and sometimes you can be accused of being very insular in your approach because you're always focusing on one particular subject matter. So I'm just curious how you found the packaging coating sector so far.
So for me personally, what I like about packaging coatings is it's sustainable in itself. It is so difficult to get fresh food, fresh vegetables to some of the areas, as well as there is so much waste in that industry. I like the fact that coatings enable sustainability in itself. And also, of course, there is a diverse of chemistries and applications for beverages as well. And from making an impact on the world perspective, as many companies in the industry now at PPG, we're not only focused on being a technology leader and being a product leader in our area, but also development of coatings, which are better for our world, are better for our environment, and walking the walk towards making more sustainable technologies as we move forward over the next years.
Absolutely. In sustainability, we can't reach our objectives without taking use of modern forms of technology and not least AI, which I'm quite interested to discuss today. So I think perhaps a nice place to start is how AI is potentially revolutionising the packaging sector. If you could perhaps provide a bit of an overview. First off, maybe just a bit of background about what AI is for perhaps those of us who aren't quite as well accustomed with the topic, and then also how that is potentially impacting the packaging sector, which in the past has been accused of being perhaps a little bit conservative in its approach. So bringing these new forms of technology on board certainly seems important.
That's an excellent question to start. What's important here is artificial intelligence has been shown to revolutionize, really change the way we do innovation in so many other sectors. For example, healthcare, in pharmaceutical development, artificial intelligence, usage of artificial intelligence to analyze large sets of data, have predictive modeling, sort through the data, and help the scientists to get to quicker conclusions has shown that the drug development can be accelerated as fast as 2 weeks and months versus years. And I would say that healthcare was one of the very first industries that adopted artificial intelligence because the developmental cycles there are so long. But I think it's also an important parallel for us to consider in the packaging industry because our development cycles are quite long as well, both because the formulation development takes time, but also because our products touch food and beverage. Our tests are very long term to make sure the coatings is the highest quality. And using artificial intelligence can allow us to accelerate our developmental cycle, which is a huge value add both to us, producers of coatings, but also to our customers as well, because it allows us to bring desired products to the market much faster. Another industry where artificial intelligence has been really successful is manufacturing overall across all industries, because there you can do things like predict the levels of raw materials, optimize your supply chain, have much better quality controls where machine learning, artificial intelligence can notice patterns and optimize your processing, such as temperature, pressure, other manufacturing parameters, but also be on the lookout for systematic defects and quality assurance, which sometimes is hard to notice with a human eye. In packaging specifically, and I would even take a step back, and specialty chemical industry, I think the artificial intelligence is just starting to come in, but it has so much potential in terms of selecting the right chemicals and the right formula, accelerating that cycle. Usually in our industry, you have to iterate many times and have a number of formulations to select the right one. Getting to the right formulation faster is a huge value add. Also, it allows for cost optimization because it allows you to screen through different chemicals and different ingredients in a more effective way, which of course correlates to value to our customers as well. And when it comes to collaborating with our customers, it also allows us to use predictive modeling and machine learning to accelerate some of the long-term testing. So when we go in the real trials, we have a much higher confidence that the coating and the product will work.
Sounds really interesting. I've got two questions that kind of playing devil's advocate in my role here. So apologies in advance. So I know you mentioned there about the manufacturing sector as a whole has taken to AI very quickly. I mean, the metal packaging industry, as I alluded to earlier, is very traditional. So how has this been adapted in the packaging coating sector and the wider metal packaging sector as a whole? Is the industry taking to AI, or is it a little bit behind the curve, maybe compared to other manufacturing sectors? I'm just quite curious to see how where this industry is and if there's work to be done to try and accelerate things further.
I think the overall chemical industry, which of course includes specialty coatings as well, such as packaging coatings, is somewhat behind, but we're starting to see public studies and publications from some of the companies in that sector overall. I think where most companies are right now in that sector is thinking how artificial intelligence fits in their existing processes. And you're right, it's a very traditional industry, and it's also an industry that requires really high quality and regulatory control as well. So as leaders in that industry, as technical people, we have to be really careful with AI as well to make sure we have the highest quality controls as well. And at the end of the day, it is governed by our people, our scientists, but it's a tool. Like everything else, it's a tool that allows for acceleration of innovation. And also in the whole industry overall, the development is expensive. It takes resources, it takes time, and when we think about the breakthrough innovation that I think we really need, especially when it comes to sustainability, it's not like an incremental step that results in the best sustainable solutions. It's a breakthrough, looking at something from a different angle. Artificial intelligence lowers the cost barrier of innovating because it allows to save some of the time, the scientist time, the developmental time, the testing time. Where most companies are right now is really focusing on collecting data and just starting to put together the machine learning and AI models from my perspective. But it is really important because the machine learning and artificial intelligence will only get better. We've already seen a huge shift in 2018, where with the emergence of technologies such as ChatGPT and many others, we've seen that now artificial intelligence cannot just analyze and bucket the data, it can learn from the data and it can make conclusions based on the data. And that has been a really big shift in how we look at artificial intelligence. And there are many examples in sectors other than coatings industry. For example, when you think about gaming, like playing chess or pokers, the best or poker, the best players have probably played thousands of times, thousands of combinations. Within 5 minutes, the artificial intelligence can look through billions of different cases, billions of combinations, and learn and analyze from that. And it will outperform the best players every single time. I think in science in general, as we use artificial intelligence, knowledge and having the data will be the new richness and the new gold. And the skill set will come from how do you utilize artificial intelligence and that knowledge as a scientist, as a tool, because artificial intelligence will will use the data, learn from prior experiments, and then make certain conclusions and interpretations, and looking at that in strategic way and taking a step forward and also asking the right questions. That's where the next generation scientist skill set will come from.
Absolutely, I agree. You only have to look at the sports sector as well, where data is really the new commodity. You look at baseball, American football, when they do their draft picks for players, and also into other sports such as golf, soccer. It's becoming a real hotbed of activity, and not least for the recruitment sector as well. And I'm just curious how this is going to play out with current I know the move towards automation, especially. But I know we're looking at how are we going to match that with employing the right type of people as well, and is that going to come at a cost for companies such as yourself trying to get the right people into analyzing this data and analyzing AI? Is that going to be quite tricky moving forward, getting the right people into to basically utilize the tools that potentially will become available?
So within PPG, we have a digitalization team that's looking at all of the PPG and all of the businesses, including packaging, to help us utilize these new emerging tools in the best possible way. I see it as enabler for our scientists to move forward a little bit faster, enabler to have more time to think and analyze results versus process a bunch of data. And I see it as an add versus like a very different skill set that just allows us to be more effective and more efficient and get to market faster, especially with the sustainable solutions. And maybe something else to add here, there are different dimensions to how we can use artificial intelligence. It is all about the data, collecting the data from prior experiments, both successful experiments and failed experiments as well, and then utilizing the learning from artificial intelligence to formulate faster with less iterations, to predict how the products will behave in different environments, but also to optimize production, as I mentioned before, and get to the right window of temperature, pressure, and other parameters in a more systematic way. Of course, we have such rigorous standards and we watch out for failure in many, many ways, just like everybody else in the industry. Another piece where machine learning can help is also going through looking for those failures in a faster, more systematic way, which I think is kind of the next level that the industry will focus on in the future, because right now it's really about collecting the data.
So, Polina, yeah, it seems that certainly, yeah, PPG have a really interesting heritage with regards to sustainability, and I just want to press you on one thing. I certainly I'm aware of Safe Assure, which is obviously a very pertinent topic to PPG, not least at the moment. So, if you could perhaps just provide a brief overview on this, that would be great.
Alex, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Safe Assure is just another example of how PPG leads in safety and sustainability. Here at PPG, we use Safe Assure to pre-screen raw materials to really make sure that they meet global regulatory requirements and address emerging substances of concern. We review all of our raw materials for toxicology through scientific studies and in silico or computer testing on raw materials as well. This allows us to assess our formulations for hazard and risk through third-party testing. For example, food safety and compliance testing for specific migration, or screening for non-intentionally added substances, as well as overall migration screening of materials of concern through bioassays and in silico tools.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that. Funny enough, a book I'm reading at the moment, it's called Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed, which is about how some industries really don't see failure as a negative, and it's about bringing learning from failure, and actually it means you can ultimately improve. So I'm just curious. I assume that can be similar in the packaging coating sector as well. Is that using this data, using the technology to ultimately keep improving rather than standing still?
Absolutely. Especially in science, failure is just data. It's data that allows you to pivot towards a better result, ever more so in science than anywhere else. But if you think about new emerging startups, which I think is relevant, because for us, launching a new technology, going into the new market is kind of like a startup too. There are almost no startups that started with original idea and that's the final product, that's the final idea. You have to fail a lot to be successful in science and in other aspects in life overall. So I think it's just data, and especially for artificial intelligence, machine learning, those failure examples, capturing the data on failure of formulations is just as important as capturing the data on the successes. It could play a huge role in terms of formulating for us and for other companies and the industry in general, because coatings are very challenging from the technology perspective. It's one of the most challenging areas in the scientific, I would say in the scientific community overall, because there are so many ingredients that you have to use to get the property set that you need. So it's all about structure, process, property relationships of the material. And because you have to balance so many parameters at the same time, being able to do that quicker and have a better starting point is really huge. I also see it as a great tool for knowledge transfer as well, and helping newer people, newer scientists get on board faster. You mentioned that specialty chemical packaging, it's a bit of more conservative, in some way, a more aging industry. At PPG, at other industries, I've seen that there are so many amazing experts who spend a lot of time developing their knowledge. And packaging, you have to be a scientist for 10, 20 years to really, really understand the science behind formulating the best coating you can.
From my understanding, AI will ultimately, there will be a sort of significant cost initially, but ultimately for the future, it means you're reducing your costs. So the initial investment is obviously significant, but that should pay dividends in the future. Is that your sort of overriding feel about how this will affect the particularly the packaging coating sector?
I would say that is very accurate for packaging sector and chemical sector overall. There is a barrier to activation of machine learning and artificial intelligence. In many ways, it's a difficult barrier to overcome. But yes, once you overcome that barrier, it brings the costs down. And the reason why there is this barrier is maybe a multiple fold. One is there is a time cost. It requires extra time in the beginning to design the way you capture the data and actually capture the data so the artificial intelligence has the data to work with. And it does take some time to change that mindset and get the scientists to adapt to capturing the data in the right format that then can be used by machine learning and artificial intelligence. Many industries manage that through having electronic notebooks versus the paper notebooks that scientists use nowadays. So capturing the data, large activation barrier and the cost to that, the time cost, right? The lost time, in a way, a lost time that you take away from working on something else because you do need to put more time in capturing the data, but we're trying to make it as seamless as possible at PPG. Especially, well, I will talk about the packaging specifically. And then there is a cost in having the softwares that can do machine learning and artificial intelligence. There are a number of really good companies out there which are specifically focused on industries like packaging that have experts that can help you design these tools specifically for your industry. But usually working for these companies is really expensive. So the corporations like PPG have two choices: to either have their own internal software and their own internal capabilities or partner with somebody like that.
Polina, I just want to touch upon a couple of other points of note that during this conversation, I just want to move things back towards PPG and how specifically the company are using AI. We've covered the topic in depth, which is fantastic. So I'm just curious to see how you guys are using AI in more detail. So if you could just perhaps introduce a couple of areas, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. So I can't go in too many exact details here, but of course I can talk in general terms. As I mentioned, it is a focus for PPG. We have a digital team that works with all of our businesses, and we have a few businesses who are pioneers and doing some pilot work on using artificial intelligence and machine learning. And packaging coatings is one of the perfect businesses for that because our developmental cycles are so long and there is so much know-how that's tied into our formulating as well. So we are starting some of those initial efforts and we're focused on capturing the data and developing the right algorithms for us internally in terms of developing formulations. And we're also working to partner with our selected customers to accelerate our innovation and development together as well in terms of some of the typical longer term testing we do once we have the developed formulation.
Is this for PPG or specifically the packaging coating sector, or are you kind of taking some of the technology from other parts of other industries that you're involved with and other sectors you're involved with and using that technology in the packaging coating sector?
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted some context about where on the journey specifically you guys in the packaging coating sector are.
Great question. Yes. So my answer was specifically at PPG, and to highlight the key points from the last response at PPG, packaging coating specifically, we're very much focused on capturing the data and starting to do some of those early on machine learning and artificial intelligence runs, both in terms of formulating our own coating and our formulation, but also working on partnering with our customers to start predictive modeling and simulation using AI for some of the testing that we typically do. But we are early on in the process. But I think that doesn't matter so much because artificial intelligence is only going to get more advanced. I think it's going to be like a snowball, and it's going to get better and better and better. What really matters for us in PPG, specifically in packaging coatings, and for everybody in the industry, is to really have the data. Because if you have the data, you can do whatever you want. But the more data you have, the better data you have, the better artificial intelligence and the more accurate artificial intelligence modeling you can have. That is PPG specific. I really do believe it will be very transformative for the packaging coatings industry in general. And I think it is something that's unavoidable. I don't think it's a choice. I think it's something that all the companies will adopt. It's more about not being too late, because we may be not PPG specifically, but I think the industry overall would not want to be too late to take advantage of all of these capabilities and tools.
Absolutely. And just for our listeners, is there any examples that you have of AI-driven approaches that have improved decision making in the packaging industry? Just that perhaps gives us a little bit of clarity about how this is such a huge topic and potentially exciting issue for the industry overall in general.
I don't have specific examples to quite share yet, but I hope to have some next time, hopefully within a year from now. But in general terms, I think where it can play a real role in a near term versus kind of longer term, a few years from now, is one, making a decision on the right formulation faster, cost analysis of different raw materials and selecting the best ones from costs, as well as also aid from searching through intellectual property when you're setting off to design a new technology, a new chemistry, because artificial intelligence can search through all of that really quickly and kind of give you a snapshot of your space, which of course is really important in the packaging industry as well.
That's great. And I just, I know we've cover this subject and it's entirely positive, but just want to have add a note of caution towards the end of this conversation that there potentially will be some challenges along the way. I know we mentioned about the industry being fairly conservative, so that may be a potential challenge about implementation, but is there any other challenges potentially that the industry has to be perhaps a little bit mindful of when it comes to AI?
I would say there are three key challenges. One is getting the overall acceptance of technical scientific community, because it's new, and new always sometimes is hard to accept, especially if it's so transformational and so different as artificial intelligence. And my perspective is that for sure it's not like we're going to have this machine learning that's going to replace our scientists or our experts. It's just a tool, like an analytical tool that you use, like an electronic notebook. So that's the mindset and the vision I try to convey in my work. It's just a tool that accelerates your work, makes your work more fulfilling, allows you to focus on the really cool stuff like planning your experiments, doing your analysis versus sorting through all the data. So getting acceptance of technical community is a challenge. Creating enough time to capture the data well is another challenge as well. And also the quality of the machine learning models and artificial intelligence. At the end of the day, it's up to all of us, the scientists, the leaders, to judge the quality of the results and making the right strategic decisions versus blindly trusting the results as well. So I would say those are key challenges. The activation curve of acceptance, making sure you make enough time to capture all the data, and then staying on top of still making strategic decisions versus trusting the artificial intelligence. Maybe another fourth piece to bring is confidentiality as well. That is very important too. How do we protect the data? How do we protect our learning? How do we make sure that what we do specific to PPG, doesn't go out there into the world and it's our data and our learning? I think outside of the digital world, all of this used to be so much more easier and more straightforward, and we just have to be a lot more careful now.
Absolutely. And just one final topic question on this topic is I'm just curious what you ultimately see as being more important. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I think this is an interesting question. Do you think data is ultimately in decision making? Is data ultimately going to be more important than gut feel, instinct, human instinct, or do you think it's going to be a combination of the two? I'm just quite curious to see because there's some school of thought where people are like, oh no, it's all about data, all about data. Other people are like, no, it's all if you gut feel, your gut feel is never wrong, and it's kind of your instinct, knowledge on a topic will ultimately override the data. So I'm just seeing, as I've got you here on the call, I'm just interested to see what your view is.
I think it's both. I think both are important, but I think there will be a shift of the mindset and how we think about the science, where I think right now the instinct slash, I would say, your knowledge, your inherent knowledge on how to put the right molecules together, that's where the advantage of the expert comes from. Of course, the expert with 20 years on coatings can formulate faster than somebody coming in, even with technical background, like myself, for example. I think we will see a shift where that skill set will be less important and data will be more important, because the data and artificial intelligence and machine learning will be able to predict the formulations and whatever we need answered or predicted in a really, really good way that may be more effective. But then it's going to be all about what do you do with this data? How do you ask the right set of questions? How do you design the next set of experiments? How do you identify value for your customers in the most effective way? I don't think that will ever go away. So I think that instinct knowledge, that expertise you're talking about, it will always be there. It's very valuable, but perhaps the skill set of how we look at the way we do science will shift over time.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting, and perhaps it may well be a generational shift as well, where those that have been in the industries 30, 40, 50 years will feel like it's all about human instinct, whereas perhaps those that will always have grown up with AI will say that perhaps feelings are overrated and it all comes down to ultimately data. So it's a curious mix, and I'm certainly of the agreement with you. It's kind of a combination of the two for the moment, but we'll see. It's interesting topic to unveil.
Exactly. And I think, for me, even, in my generation, it's hard to envision what it looks like and what, the science, the leadership of future will look like. I think some of our inherent skills, strategy, problem solving, just being a good person, sharing your why, being curious about the world around you, asking good questions, challenging the status quo, that will never go away. That's a fundamental skill set we will always need. But as an interesting example, I can share that on one of my in one of my R&D locations, I have 4 amazing PhDs who are new hires. They just started, and they all want to do master's degrees in digitalization and artificial intelligence, even though they're chemists, right? They have very traditional chemical backgrounds. They all are very eager to do this and learn more. So I think we will see a lot more in coming years. And I think artificial intelligence, it's part of the next technology revolution, and it will change our world in many ways we can predict right now, like the way a personal computer did or the way iPhone did. And I don't think it's going to be a gradual change. I think it's going to be, like this. It's going to be exponential. And all we can do, or what we should do now, is prepare, because I don't think it's going to be like a change over years or 2 years. I think it's going to go really fast once it's truly here.
And Polina, we talked at length about the importance of AI, but I just want to lean slightly on PPG's overall sustainability message, because this is certainly a pertinent topic within the industry, and I think it would be remiss of me if we didn't at least touch upon PPG's record, which is certainly leading the market from what I can see. So, yeah, if you could just provide an overview on sustainability and what PPG are doing at the moment, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. PPG has a long history of delivering novel sustainable products to metal packaging market that exceed international food contact regulation requirements. And as an example here at PPG, we have entire product line of BPA-free products. PPG Innovel Pro for beverage cans, PPG Hoba for personal care packaging, PPG NutriShield for food cans, and of course, our iSense product line is specifically formulated to allow our customers to differentiate on the external side of the can, to allow within all three segments of packaging. And there are billions of cans coated with our non-BPA coatings every year. And these coating solutions not only protect food and beverage and help our customers meet their sustainability goals, they ultimately support circular economy because aluminum is infinitely recyclable.
Oh, it sounds exciting times, and I've certainly learned a lot on this call. So, and no doubt it's a topic that we're going to only see more and more content in the coming months and years. So, Polina, no, thanks very much for your time. It's been a really interesting conversation, and yeah, I look forward to speaking to you soon. So, no, it's been a pleasure.